everyone, welcome back to the channel. I know it's been a long time since I uploaded a video, but I definitely haven't been slacking or putting this car on the back burner. A lot of things happen in life. I moved, new house, new job, new garage. One of my buddies, my dogs, had cancer, so he needed to get a tumor removed and a blood transfusion and all that kind of stuff, so that kind of set me back a little bit. In this video, I'm going to give you all the updates, show some cool footage, and answer some Instagram questions that you all asked. Last thing I talked about was tuning with Jeremy Formato, and what I did was I ended up linking up with Jeremy, and I took the car, trailered it to Clearwater, about 3 hours away, and he got it on the dyno. Everything seemed to be going well at the very beginning, but as soon as he went wide open, the car just would not go into boost. And the LT5s have a lot of, I want to say issues, but there's a big learning curve with the LT5 as opposed to the LT4. HP Tuners does support the LT5, but they don't have all the parameters available that the LT4 does in the, like a Corvette Z06. So Jeremy figured that that had something to do with it. And that he was just maybe not seeing something, or we couldn't really figure out what the issue was. Here's one of the videos of it on the dyno. So give me a synopsis of like what you're doing and what are you seeing, and yeah, just yank it, man. You're good. It'll come off. Yeah, get the muscle behind it. There you go.
I don't think I was disappeared. Alright, so when it started really idling, like it was like camming out real bad, that made me think that it was really lean. Well, before it didn't know that E85 was its fuel, and it doesn't have a working flex fuel sensor. So that being said, I added a bunch of fuel right now. However, we also have many other fuel maps that we have to address. So that being said, I've got to do that. When I revved it, it's got fuel up in the higher RPM a little bit, or under that kind of load, but it has like no fuel down low. So I got to send a lot of fuel down low first. And this is just like the preliminary, kind of
so getting everything sort of like the idle running, like basically so that it'll just start and run. So baby steps. Yeah,
we're just doing baby steps because it doesn't have fuel for a long time. So it should smooth up, but I've just got to get all that in the ballpark. So
okay, cool.
We're getting there.
All right. All right, so as you saw in that video, it definitely wasn't like crazy ripping, like what you would think like a 1,000 horsepower car should do. And the most it put down was 478 horsepower to the tires at 2 pounds of boost. So Jeremy figured like maybe it's the speed sensor. So on this car, I do GPS speed through the aim dash, so I know how fast I'm going. The ECU at that point didn't really know how fast the car was going. So in the instructions, actually, it even says that you need to put a speed sensor on it, and it needs to, it tells you like how many revolutions and how many pulses the signal needs. So I got a reluctor wheel from Ultima, put it on there, calibrated the sensor, everything was good, drove it back to Jeremy, another 3 hours, I wanna say like maybe a month later. And you know, it's hard to get on other people's schedules too. So the car would just sit, and then finally I had to take it for a second time. We have a speed reading, I think everything is gonna go well. Strap it to the dyno, same exact thing. So Jeremy was going over it and he's like, you know, I really don't know what's wrong, I'm really sorry. He didn't even charge me for the second time, and it was a really good experience. Just real quick, those guys at Faster Proms, really down to earth guys, exactly what you see on their channel. This was back when George still worked at the channel. He let me take his truck to buy everyone lunch because my truck was hooked up to a trailer and everything. So he handed me the keys to his and made it a point to tell me that it had a turbo, and he was really excited about it, but I didn't rag on his car or anything, but it was a really cool experience working with those guys. Long story short though, again, didn't make any more power on the dyno. So I came home and I took a bore scope to see the intake area, and I figured, you know, maybe it has something to do with that 3D printed throttle body relocation that I made. Turns out it was right. That thing was cracked a little bit, and I don't know when it became cracked, but it definitely touched the firewall, and you know, I just went too big. That was my mistake. So anyways, that was good in a sense that I found out what the problem was. It was a gigantic vacuum leak. So the ECU is seeing a certain amount of air come through to the mass air sensor, and then that's not really vibing with the manifold air pressure sensor. So I put the stock relocation tube on, and I went to a tuner in my area, which is South Florida, called DSM Lights, and he's tuned a couple ZR1 Corvettes, the 2019 with the LT5, and strapped it down, and first pull, it made like 600 something, I think like 613. He messed with the timing a little bit. That was only to like, I wanna say like 5,000 RPM too. So he made 3 pulls total, and I'll show you these right now. So you can see the last pull, it made 751 horsepower to the tires. A lot of power for a lightweight car. And one problem that we had this time around was that the belt was slipping on the supercharger, so it would peak at 16 pounds and then taper off to about 12 pounds at like 6,600 RPM. Anything over like 5,000 RPM, it would just taper down to 12. So what I did for that is I went to DSX Tuning. First off, I called a couple places that do ZR1s, and I asked them what they do with the 2.7 pulley with the stock belt. They say they put a 100mm idler pulley on it, and it seems to not slip. So that's one thing that I need to do. And then I'll probably go back to the dyno, or maybe I'll street tune it a little bit. But still, that means that it's well over 800 horsepower to the flywheel. And also another thing I want to point out is the weight. Everyone asks how much these things weigh. So here is a picture of it on some scales, and you can see that total weight with 1 seat in the car and all fluids, half a tank of fuel, ready to run, was 2,490 pounds. It definitely needs to be corner balanced, but that's the total weight for the car. So over 800 horsepower, that amount of weight, it's definitely going to be moving. So another issue that I found was the heat underneath the clam. It was crazy. Even though I ceramic coated them or Cerakoted the headers, the heat was just insane. Like, and when I talked to Jeremy, about it. He was like, you know, he was describing how heat works, and this is all something we know, but it's hard to visualize. He said, imagine pouring water and watching it hit the ground and disperse. That's like what heat does when it rises. And what it would do, it was just rise like right up into that clam. And I did have heat shielding, but those headers were just like, it was like a stove on either side, and it was almost melting all the wires and everything. And this was like at low boost, low power and everything. So I reached out to DEI. Actually, DEI reached out to me and asked me if I needed anything a while ago, and I reached out to them and said, you know, could I get some of your header wrap? So I ended up wrapping the headers. Looks amazing. I'm kind of torn. I don't know what looks better, if the burnt bronze Cerakote looks better or the header wrap. They're actually the exact same color, just you get the texture and the look from the header wrap. So you guys let me know what you think. Definitely knocked down under clam temps. Like it definitely cut them in half or more. It completely changed the underhood heat, and huge shout out to DEI for helping me out with that. Also, anti-gravity batteries reach out to me. I'm running an anti-gravity battery in it right now. I'm running the ATX20 HD, which is, I mean, it's probably like this big. It's tiny. It looks like a little ATV battery, and it cranks up this big V8 like nothing. They reached out to me. They ended up giving me the ATX30 HD just because they said that they didn't think that the 20 had enough capacity as far as like being able to handle certain accessories and stuff like that. They felt like the ATX20 had enough power for cranking it, but just not enough power for like parasitic loss, stuff like that, leaving the car parked for a while, because the capacity is really small on that, but the cranking power is still pretty good. This, more cranking power, more capacity. So I'm gonna put this in, and thanks to the guys at Anti-Gravity for sending me that. It was, I mean, those things are very expensive, and they just sent me one right away and really hooked it up. So now with that, I'm gonna answer some questions from people on Instagram and show you a couple videos that I've shot. So Juan David 2317 asked, what's the most difficult part of assembling the Ultima RS? And for me, it was, I wanna say like the parts that required two people, but instead I did on my own. Like there was one night, so every night that I worked on this car, I would set a goal for myself. And I would say, tonight I'm gonna do all the suspension and the brakes. And I'd go out there and I wouldn't come inside until I finished all of that. And that's just how I work. I don't know how other people do it. You know, they go out on a weekend or whatever, but for me, it was like an every night thing. I would give myself something to do, and I'd do it. And the night that I put the suspension and the brakes on, I was like, I'm getting this thing on the ground tonight. I wanna see it rolling. And it seemed to be maybe a goal that I shouldn't have set for myself, because I didn't finish till 9 a.m. the next morning. It was light out, and when you do that kind of work, like really important, meticulous stuff, and you're running on no sleep, like that's a prime recipe for making mistakes. Thankfully, I didn't make any mistakes, and I got the car on the ground, but I was exhausted, and that I probably wouldn't have done again. Also, the clutch fork on the Porsche transmissions, I mean, they say the Germans make the best designs, but anyone who's done a clutch on one of these transmissions, like it's just, a regular slave cylinder is much better. A push type slave cylinder is much better than what's on these cars. And they're very hard. Not hard, they're just very difficult. Well, yeah, they are. They're hard. They're hard to do. And you have to put in this shaft that this fork pivots on, and you can't do that until the transmission is all the way up to the engine, and you have to put this little fork on a part of the clutch just kind of hanging there. A lot of people do it with tape, and then they pull the tape out at the end, but that was probably the most difficult thing for me, putting the car together. So AB23 and then 23 in Roman numerals asked for videos of me sending it. So stick around for a couple minutes and you'll see some good videos of me definitely sending it, and you'll get an idea of how it goes. Cubic Zerk asked, what would you do differently if you were to build it again, learning from this one? And that's a good question. And I can't think of anything substantial I would have done differently, other than I probably wouldn't have done the throttle body relocation. myself on a 3D printer, I would have just used the Ultima one like I ended up doing anyways. I could definitely save a lot of time if I was to put another one together from scratch right now, just because I know how everything goes together. But other than that, I mean, I'd still use the same engine, same transmission, same wheels, same tires, all the options. I have no regrets of any of the options I picked. So I wish I could say that I would have done a lot of stuff differently, but I really can't think of anything that I would have done differently. JohnMart.jm asked, how does it drive and handle? So that's also a great question. The best description I could give is it's like a big go-kart. It's just a tube frame chassis with some fiberglass panels on it and a big engine in the back. Steering is really heavy at low speeds, but once you get going, it lightens up a lot. But when you turn, like, it's telepathic. It's, you know exactly what those front tires are doing. And if you just get on the throttle a little bit mid-turn, like after apex, that steering lightens up big time, and you just feel every little bit of weight and feedback from the steering wheel. It's unlike any other car I've ever driven. Also, one thing that I thought before I built it is that it probably would feel like you're going a lot faster than you really are. Like if you're on a boat, 30 miles an hour, 35 miles an hour feels a lot faster than 35 miles an hour in a car. This does not feel that way. Like you could be going 80, 90 miles an hour on the highway and it does not feel like that because it's so planted, and you could yank the wheel and it will just dart into the other lane. There's zero drama. It just goes wherever you point it. I haven't even put the car at the limit at all handling wise, but that limit is so high for a street car that, you know, it's like I said, it's unlike anything I've ever driven. Godspeed.edc asked what the drag coefficient of the Ultima is. I don't know that. That's probably a question for the Ultima factory. I know they put it in a wind tunnel. I can tell you that it's probably not that good in a sense because it does have a lot of drag from the downforce. That big wing definitely doesn't help it slip through the air at all. But what's cool is that this is cool and not cool, because I got caught in the rain coming back from the first car show I took it to, and it's definitely not cool getting caught in the rain in this thing because it's got those big wide tires and they can act like a ski over any standing water. Thankfully there wasn't too much standing water, but there was a good drizzle coming down, and I'd look in the rearview mirror and you could see the water getting pushed over the rear wing and creating a rooster tail. So you could actually see the aerodynamics of the car working, and that was really, really cool. Also, as I'm driving, you could see all the water coming up through the hood vents, or the wheel well vents, which are made to just extract air from there and cause less lift. So Brown Hair Masters asked, how is keeping the engine compartment temp down? What are the temps? So it's been really hot here in Florida. I'm in South Florida, and ambient temps are like 100 degrees with high humidity down here. And I've been seeing, while I'm driving, my coolant temps are around 200 to, while I'm driving, to 225 sitting at a stoplight. The fans kick on at 207 and they definitely help, but everyone that knows LS and LT motors, they actually run a little bit hotter than normal, or what you would be comfortable with another engine, and they perform really well at those higher temperatures. So nothing that I've been concerned with. I haven't had like overheated and had to pull over or anything like that. Really no concerns with that. My intake air temperatures are just above ambient, so like 100 degrees intake air temperatures. One design that I'm not really too happy with on the Ultima is the overflow tank for the intercooler. Sits right above the headers, so it's basically just absorbing all that heat, and I might do something about that, but you know, it's just heating that water that the air is then cooled with, so I don't know how much it really helps. But the thing that does help the most is the air filter is right at the side scoop of the left side of the car, and if you I put a leaf blower on the side of it and blew into that, and it fills that whole area with good fresh air, and it really works well. So it's definitely grabbing the outside air really well. So those are the temps. Hope that answered your question. Cross_Francis42 asked if I could do a point of view drive. I definitely will soon, but the closest thing I have in the meantime is a clip of what it's like to stop at a gas station in this car, and here it is.
Can I take a picture?
Yeah, man.
This is the best car I've ever seen.
Yeah, me too.
Best car I've ever seen.
Yes, sick. Damn. It's sick. That cute.
All right, guys, have a good day.
You too. What do you do for us? What do you do, Sammy?
So that happens everywhere I go. Every single time I stop, people ask me about the car. Kids, older people, men, women, everything. They all say cool car. No one knows what it is. I haven't had anyone know what it is yet. But those little kids were really, really funny. They walked up and they were just blown away. So I was happy to, if I was a little kid, I would have loved to have done that too. And one thing you can't really hear the guy say is he asked me what I do for a living. And then right after he says, can I get 20 bucks? So it's the state of our youth today. I told him no, but we both laughed. Basimo Jazeri, I kind of butchered that. I don't know how to pronounce that, but he asked, how is the build quality so far? So quick answer on this one. Everything's held up great. Zero issues with any of the Ultima supplied parts. The car only has like 250 miles on it, so I can't really maybe report back as well as I'd like to, but zero issues. Everything's great build quality. That's about it. White Panther ZL1 asked, how is traction on this being mid-engine and with that power? So that was one of my biggest questions when I got the car was, you know, how is this thing gonna hook or not hook or spin, or how is control going to be with a stupid amount of power, no traction control, no ABS, no nothing, you know, that all that is in your right foot. But hopefully this video will show you a bit about that. In that video, I had it in second gear, and I just dumped the clutch at like maybe 5,000 RPM and just put the pedal to the floor, and that thing, it'll spin. You can see the tires spinning, but all it's doing is just clawing for grip and just squatting and going. I thought it was gonna spin a whole lot more, but it just hooked and went. The weight distribution with the engine transmission being right over the rear tires and that big wing definitely help. So I'd like to definitely see how I can do a, I don't know, like a street pull from a stoplight, just ripping off and accelerating as quick as possible. JP_XJ asked, what is the full build cost and how much time did it take? So I feel like I could build this exact car again for probably 155,000, and that's going with all the carbon options, same exact options I did now, same transmission, same engine. I spent a lot of, I guess, unneeded money in trying to do my own thing a little bit and buying stuff I probably really didn't need to. So I think I could do it for that figure again. And as far as build time, I probably put about 400 hours into building this, and I think that I could definitely build one in that amount of time again. So Telemark Bataljonen asked how the comfort is for long drives. So the car's loud, but other than that, I mean, it's not uncomfortable in any other way. It's warm inside, and my AC, I've been battling some issues with that, and it's not working right now, so it's brutally hot. But once the AC works, and I have had it working before, it's just a nice, comfortable drive. You just have to you have to drive it like a motorcycle, you know, so you're kind of like nervous all the time because, you know, I don't want anyone to hit me in this thing. And if I do get hit, I fear getting hurt really bad. So you just have to make sure you don't stain people's blind spots and all that kind of stuff. But as far as comfort, it's really not bad at all. You just kind of sit in your little cockpit there and you can rest your arm on the sill and you just cruise. It's no big deal. It's got plenty of power. You don't need to downshift to pass anyone. You just put your foot down a little bit and it's so light that it just goes. One thing that's kind of funny is when you push the button for the signal, you kind of have to retrain yourself, because I'll find myself just driving with my signal on, because you have to remember to turn it off. It's not like a regular car where you make your turn and it stops. So that's just one little thing that I've, because I hate the old people in Florida where it's a perpetual right-hand turn. So I gotta make sure that I don't do that. Same guy also asked how it compares to supercars like the GT2 RS, etc. I can't answer that yet because I haven't had it on a track and I haven't raced a GT2 RS. But I can show you how it compares to a Kawasaki Ninja ZX-10R, and these trap between 145 and 147 miles an hour in the quarter mile, so take a look. All right, so you can see that the Ultima definitely just squatted and walked away from it. And before anyone says that the bike caught up and passed me no problem, rewatch the clips and you can see the second that I hit the throttle, you can watch the rear wing and you'll see the car squat and you'll see it come up a little bit. That's when I'm shifting, and then you'll see it squat down again, and then you'll see it lift up again, and that's when I lift off, and only then does he come around me. And I talked to the guy on the side of the road, really, really cool guy. He said he was gonna look up the YouTube channel and see it and everything, but he was definitely in it, and he was definitely giving it all he had, and he was very, very surprised because there's not many cars that can do that to a liter bike. So those are all the questions, and with all that being said, I just wanna say thank you to everyone who's staying tuned and asking me to post updates and videos. I'm trying to link up with Brooks from Drag Times and see what the Ultima can do on the street and the track versus things like the McLaren 765 LT, Tesla Plaid, and he just got a Ferrari SF90 Stradale. So I'd love to run those and give people a real world sort of gauge as to what these things are capable of, and are they really a budget supercar killer. So stay tuned for that, and I'll definitely be putting out more frequent videos. And again, just thanks for watching. See you next time.